What's going on? I'm going to show you guys a quick tutorial, hopefully quick, on how to log in to a website with Mechanical Soup, which is a Python library. Log in, access information, scrape the website, and get data that you want. Now, I'm doing this tutorial with a focus on using code to log in to a website and browse it, whereas some websites you might not need to do that, but this is for people who do. So I'm going to jump right into it actually. First of all, I need to install Mechanical Soup, which I haven't done yet, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Now, Mechanical Soup comes with the requests and the Beautiful Soup library sort of already in it. So you don't have to worry about installing those separately. You're going to need them. So what do we do now? You should already have Python installed. This is not a Python tutorial, so you should be familiar with the language already, at least somewhat familiar. Even I'm kind of a rookie. So here we go. I'm going to open up idle. Actually, as a matter of fact, instead of using idle, I'm going to use VS Code. But before I do that, let me go ahead and create a folder. On my desktop, I'm going to create a new folder called Mech Soup Test. And I'm going to open that in my code editor. And now we have an empty folder ready for a Python file. So we're going to click New File. We'll just call it test.py. If you get any messages on the bottom right about updating your Python library, just accept them. Alright, so what do we do first? We really want to import Mechanical Soup. That's the first thing we want to do. Now let's go to the Mechanical Soup website and look at their tutorial. And instead of you having to read this, this is kind of what this is about. I'm going to just sort of explain it to you. Now, in order to log into a website, here's an example here, right? I'm going to take all this code and copy it, just because it's kind of like a boilerplate here. I'm going to paste it there. Now, I'm not going to use these other libraries, so I'm just going to use Mechanical Soup. I'm going to get rid of this code. I don't need it. We're going to keep it real simple, okay? Now, the first thing that we're going to do with Mechanical Soup is open up a stateful browser, which just means that it's going to sort of use cookies and cache data, as far as I understand, so that it acts like a real browser, so that you can log into a website and it will remember that you've logged in. It will remember what pages you're on and what cookies you have stored and things like that, because we need those things to be able to stay logged into the website as we browse it. So I'm just going to put a comment here saying create stateful browser. Okay. I'm not worried about this other stuff because I don't know what it is. I'm by no means an expert, but I know that we don't need that. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to delete most of this code, actually all of it. And really, this is all we really need to start with here, because the first thing that you do is open up the browser that you just created. Now this is a programmatically opened browser. It's not a browser that pops up for you. However, you can run a command to open up a browser and test the, what you've got so far. So we're just going to write a comment that says use browser to open link. And I went ahead and created a user on Wikipedia called mechanicalsoup.Test. And we're going to log into Wikipedia and navigate it with this browser and scrape it for some information. The first thing that you need to know when you're using this library and using Python to do this is that every website is different. You really need to look at the code of the website. I'm in Chrome. I'm going to hit F12. And really the first thing that you want to know, actually I can close this out and I can right click on this login and click inspect. This is what the link I ultimately want to sort of open up to log in. Now, that's the first thing that you need to know because you're trying to log into a website. So this is your first sort of thing that you need to know. Sorry, I repeated myself. But we're going to open up wikipedia.org first. So that's the link that we want to go to. And now we want to use this follow link method to get to the login page. Now, before we get to the rest of this code, which I'm going to comment out, let's go ahead and try this and see what happens. Hold on, formatter auto pep 8 is not installed. Sure, why not? I don't know what that is, but I'm going to install it. Hopefully it's not something that messes me up. So I'm going to go ahead and run this code and see what happens. And I got an error, which I expected, that there's a link not found, which means that this login link doesn't exist. Let's go back to the docs here. And we're going to look at, let's see here. The follow link thing here, okay? Let me look up follow link. HTTP bin, that's the one I wanted to use earlier, but I couldn't find it and I didn't realize it was written into this documentation. So we're using Wikipedia instead, which is fine. But I'm going to use this as my example to sort of explain how navigating the HTML works. If you can see here, they opened up httpbin.org. I'm going to go there real quick. And this is what the website looks like. Now, if I hit F12 to look at the layout of the code, I can see that this is it here. And what they're doing is following a link with the forms parameter. What does that mean? Let's search for forms here. I'm going to hit Control F. And you can see here that it's following the link here. but they're not putting the whole form/post parameter. They're just putting the word forms. But they're passing in a regular expression. Now, I guess the this by default takes a regular expression, and a regular expression is just kind of like a you can either type in a word, like a keyword to search for. It's kind of like a search feature. It returns the first thing that it finds with that word in it. And since that's the first thing that I find when I search for forms in here, oops, wrong one. Since I searched for forms, you can see there's two instances of the word forms here. But this is the first link that I find with it. And since we're actually following a link, it's looking for a link with the word login. Therefore, that's what we need to find in the Wikipedia website. Now, this link actually does not start with the word form. So how do we get to this page? If I click this, you can see it brings me to the login page. I think the most prevalent word here that matters is user login. What if I search Control F for user login? Well, you can see here that's a very special word that exists in this link. So what if we go back to here and we say user login instead of login? I'm not sure why it didn't find it when I just said login, but we'll see what happens when we try it again. Let me go back to here. It's capitalized. I don't know if that matters. Capital U in user, capital L in login. Maybe if we go back and we say capital U for user, maybe that will work. Let's see what happens when we run it. It's all about testing, and you can see here it processed that. Well, that's because a regex pays attention to capital letters. It's case sensitive. I didn't get the link not found error, so therefore I know I must have found the link. So how do I know I went to the right place? Because once this follows the link, it's gonna act like a browser, and when it follows that link, it should have taken me to the login page, which would be this URL right here. We can get the URL of the browser, the current URL of the browser after that to see if that's true. So we're just gonna say browser dot get URL. And we're going to run that and see what it says. Right click, run code, or I'm just going to hit Control-N. And, oh, I got to use a print statement because it's getting my browser URL, but it's not showing it to me. Let's try that again. Control-N. And here we can see, oh, what is this? This is the current link that we get to after following this link. So what does that take us to? Let's go there. Let's control click. Yes, open it. Interesting. For some reason it took me to this person's profile, Crisco. Let's find out why that happened. It should have taken me, let me close this out. It should have taken me to, that's interesting. Crisco. Interesting. That's why it happened. Because the first, let me type in user again. You notice how I capitalized user in this case. Look how many things have the word user in it. Let's go through. And you can see the first link with the word user is this one. second one is this one, okay? So we don't want to use the word user. We want to use user login. Because if you go to follow link, it's going to follow the first link that it finds with user in it. But we don't want that because we just realized that's not what we want. That first link was someone else. It's the actual user. So let's try user login instead. That should give us the link to this one. Let's run it. Control-Alt-N. And boom, here we go. Look, we've got the login page. Let's control-click that. Open it up. And you can see we made it to the login page, which is good. We're on the right track. So, and I'm glad I'm doing it this way because you can see that you have to really look at the code in your browser and find out where you need to navigate to the login page. That's the first thing that you need to do. But now that we've actually gotten there, let's actually log in. Well, how do we do that? You can see this code down here that they're using browser.selectform. Let me go ahead and put some comments in. We open the browser. We found the login link and followed it. We'll say find and follow because this keyword's used to find it. We got the we printed the URL just to make sure we were in the right place. Check URL. And now we need to select the form, the login form. Now, this is just some pre-made code from the Mechanical Soup website. So this probably won't give us what we want. I'm going to teach you a little trick. Hopefully it works. If we just remove that and we just say select form, theoretically it's going to select whatever is the first form in the HTML on the page. I'm going to run it without checking to see if that actually works. And then I'm going to actually, let's plug that into a variable form, equals. And then we can say form dot preview. I think it's preview form preview. Let me go look at the docs. Preview is not the word. I think it's summary. Yep. Print summary. All right, so let's go back here and we'll go print summary. So we got the form by selecting it and we plugged it into this variable and then we did print summary. So let's see if we get anything good. Control-Alt-N. And look, there it is. You can see that it gives us the link first and then it gives us the form. You can see that you've got many input places on this form, but you only really care about the username and the password. So you can see where it says placeholder, enter your username, placeholder, enter your password. Let's look at the website. We'll go to the login page. You can see that it says enter your password here, so clearly that's it. And if this wasn't here, it would say enter your username. So we know we're in the right place. But how do we give those values to the website to log in? Well, here you go. That's where we do this here. We're going to uncomment that. And so what's the name of the input value on the form? It's auto-focusing on the username. Class, I don't think we need class. We can just say name. We can just, I think the name is what goes here. So if we say wpName and wpPassword, we don't need this args. I don't know anything about the args library, so we're just going to do it manually. Now I created this username and password for just for testing purposes. So mechanicalsoup.test, and that's what we're going to use. mechanicalsoup.test, and I have to capitalize it because that's what it forced me to do when I made the username. And the password, what was it? mechanicalsoup101? Or was it mechanicalsouptest101? I mean, I don't remember now. That's fine. We'll give it a few shots. But what we'll do is we'll do another form print summary to see if our values got inputted correctly. Control-Alt-N. Let's see here. I don't see, oh, here we go. Here we are. You can see that it put a value of mechanicalsouptest and a value of mechanicalsouptest101. So we did use the name of the field, and then we gave it the login information. The next thing that we do, granted my password's correct, hopefully, is we submit the form. Now we can submit the form without storing it in a variable, as far as I know. And then we can go browser.getURL after that to see if we are logged in. There might be a better way to do that, but hang on. Let me go ahead and run this. Control-Alt-N. And lost for a second here. Here's where we submitted it. Here's where we looked at the form. And here is where we checked what we wrote. But I didn't get the get URL. Maybe we do need to store that in a variable. We'll just say HTML equals. And let's run that one more time. Still didn't get the HTML. Oh, duh, I gotta print browser.getURL. Duh. So maybe I don't need that. Store that in that variable. Let's try again. Control-Alt-N. So we are back at the main page, which tells me we should be logged in at that point. What if we don't put in the right password? If that is my password and I take that out, then what happens? Control-Alt-N. Let's click that and see what that is. It looks like it took me back to the login page when I didn't put the right password in. So haha, that's how we can tell that we didn't make it. Let's try this, submit this one more time and see if it gives us the right value. And there we go, it took us to the main page. So we know by this output here that we made it. We made it to the login. I would say that that's the basics of it. You don't have to log into Wikipedia to access all of the features, but for some websites, you have to be logged in to use or scrape some of the features. Now, once you're logged in, it will remember that you're logged in as long as you keep, following links or whatever through this method, this browser method. I'm going to comment a few more things. So we get first form available, which that's the only form on the page. Many times the form, when you go to a login page, the login form is the only form on the page. But if you have multiple forms, you can always specify which form in here. Can't tell you exactly how, but I think it's another what you call it, regex, regular expression. And then we can print the summary for a review. And then we can put our name and password in. We can print another summary. To validate our input, make sure it's there. Just like you can see here, my name and password values are input there. We can submit the form. We don't have to store it in a variable, but I think if we do, it just stores the HTML that results after you submit it. And then we can check current URL to see if we are logged in, because oftentimes if you don't put in the right name and password, it takes you right back to the login page instead of back to the main page. And that's what we saw when we did this earlier. Let's go up here. You can see, where was it? Here we go. It brought us here, right? Instead of to the main page. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, it's right here. Right before I issued the correct command, you can see that we ended up back on the login page. So that's just a quick way to log in. I wanted to try to keep this short. I could show you more, which I might do in another video, but this is the basics of logging into the page. Your main objective is, and I'll write them out here, is to go to website and look at HTML and find the login link. And then what you want to do is go to the login page, or follow the login link. Then you want to get the form. Usually it's the only form on the page, otherwise you have to look for the form by inputting a regex or some value, some parameter. And then you want to put in your name and password. And you can see here, you got to look for the name of the name and password. And when I say name, I mean you have these inputs on a form, and you got to look for the name, right? The name of that input, which will be what you put here, right? So you're saying I'm using the browser, I'm accessing this named piece of the form, and this is the value I want to apply to it. So get the form and supply, or get the form and look for name and password names. Then we want to use names to assign values to name and password. Then we want to check the form summary to validate input. Then we want to submit the form. Then we want to check URL to verify login. And that's basically it. Not too much more to it. After that, you can look at the documentation on how to navigate the website with this browser, whatever you call it, browser object or browser function with these methods. And you can just look at the Mechanical Soup documentation to go through it. Now, they do all this other extra stuff. I'm sure that there's a more optimized, more safe way to do this, but this is the basic way to do it. And I just wanted to show you guys the easiest way to do it. So thanks for watching. Appreciate you. And happy coding.